optimized for video, and video is sought out more and more by consumers for entertainment, for helpful information, for inspiration. And actually, hold on, I think this, there we go. And so for us, it's thinking about video as part of that and making sure even when you're activating on a platform that historically was image-based, that you think about video. Video unlocks a ton of opportunity for you guys. And just taking a moment, why influencer? There was some joint research that we did with Geometry Global, which is a shopper marketing agency, a couple of years ago. And so it was back in 2017, but I think the data is still relevant, and the point is astonishing, or was astonishing at the time. You always thought, where do you turn to for product recommendations? The initial thought was family and friends. I used the same eye cream that my mother used when she was my age, or, trying to decide what brand is right for me. You might ask your friends what they buy. There was this shift that occurred a couple of years ago where social media content creators became that trusted source. They were more credible, more reliable, more relatable than your mom, than your friends, than brands themselves and retailers. And so what that means is that for brands that believe in influencer and find influencers that really embody their brand and then trust in them and collaborate on what that final outcome of content looks like, that is where the content can truly solve needs of customers. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't anyway, maybe it's not the case 100% right now, but you shouldn't be looking at influencers as just talking heads or vehicles to broadcast your message. You should think about them as part of your team and a content creator and someone that understands how to best integrate your product, your brand into their content, so that it resonates with their audience. YouTube is probably a platform that makes it more easy than some of the others to call out when things look forced or seemed not right for either the brand or content creator. And so that work that goes into it, that prep work on finding the influencer and briefing the influencer and collaborating with them across the channels is critical, because consumers, your customers, trust them and they want to get product information from them. And so it's on all of us to make sure that we deliver on that, and that there's that credibility and that authority and trustworthiness that is retained. And I know there's some folks out there that think that influencers will talk about anything and that, they shouldn't trust things that are being said by influencers. But, the counterpoint to that, and I see it every single day when we're working with our brands, is that the influencers will pass on partnership opportunities just as much as they'll say no, because their credibility is at stake as well. And I think as long as we all appreciate that and embrace that, consumers will get the information they need in the manner in which they want it today. And so, I talked a little bit about the growth of e-commerce and thinking about outcomes. And that doesn't necessarily only mean like, hey, my influencer is supposed to help my e-commerce business. We know, especially in consumer packaged goods, 90% of sales happen in store, or they did anyway. But wanted to take a step back and make sure that everyone understood that there is a time and a place across the full consumer journey where influencers can help your brand. This could be a funnel slide, or you think about upper funnel awareness driving. What is the purpose of working with influencers when your main KPI is to build desire and excitement for your brand? You want to find influencers who have audiences that are appropriate for your brand and your brand message. And you want to think about things like, you want the feeling to come across that this is a brand that I know and trust, this is a brand that gives me or my family what I need at a reasonable price. And so it's that setting that standard and that brand building that can occur with influencers when you're launching a new product or you're doing a relaunch of your positioning. Influencers also play a very important role when people are in the middle of their consumer journey. They're considering what products that they want to buy. They're not sure they have picked the brand or the specific product that they want. And so you can help them by putting content out there on certain platforms where you can get a little bit deeper. So you're not just showing the product and getting them aware that it exists or that you are a brand that has a product in a certain category. One level deeper, thinking about providing information, answering their questions, and helping them make a decision on which brand and product is right for them so that you can then bring them to the point of purchase. And so regardless of whether you have upper funnel or lower funnel KPIs, providing a path to purchase and enabling shopping is critical. So it should happen at any point. The outcome will change depending on what the goal of your program was. But influencers can drive meaningful traffic into whatever channel or channels that you're looking to have success on. So whether you're using influencers for a channel program on Walmart, or you're looking to do a national campaign where you're giving consumers a choice on which retailer they want to shop at, thinking about that, and in that evaluation and decision-making process, the type of influencers and the type of content that you'll ask them to make will be different than what you're looking for them to do if you're trying to build your brand, drive awareness, and those are things that we think are more important today to think about as you're building your strategy and plan. And last, and maybe the one that's thought about least, but if you think about all the time you spend finding the influencers, negotiating with them, contracting them, briefing them, they can help you after the purchase as well. So whether you're thinking about post-purchase content, advocacy, how to, and this is where content for your own channels and for the retail channels comes into play. And so influencers are authorities in their specific vertical or niche. They're amazing content creators. They are great producers and editors as well. And so they can help you fill content gaps that you have. And they can also advocate for your product after the purchase so that you can help new customers and answer questions further down the funnel. And so knowing that 90% of social media users are influenced to make a purchase after seeing content on social. We also know from research that we've done with key retailers when we place videos within the customer experience on the retailers, that shoppers are willing to spend more after watching this type of social proof within the e-commerce channel. And we've also seen those that have utilized video saw increased in traffic in search. And so YouTube specifically as a platform has this built-in SEO and search value to it. I'll show you a little bit later, but if you think about programs that you might have run on YouTube a year ago, you probably forgot, have moved on, or starting to work on something new. Maybe you moved on to another brand. But I encourage you to look back. Some of the campaigns that we worked on with our customers a year ago are still getting meaningful viewership when people are doing product research, when they're in that consideration or lower funnel part of their journey for whatever it is. And those videos, if optimized appropriately in title and description, will show up. YouTube, Google does a really good job making sure that videos are surfaced based on what people are looking for. And when that happens, that traffic is still very qualified traffic and people are buying. And so we're seeing really interesting trends right now around that platform in particular and the evergreen nature of video content. But the underlying thing that I think is important and something that we at gen.video focus on a lot is a data-driven approach. We spoke about engagement, reach, viewership impressions as KPIs. They're important, but they're not the only ones. Thinking about click-through rate and traffic and conversion rates are just as important as those upper funnel metrics when building strategy and plans. And so, this is a really simple illustration of something that we start every conversation with a new client around is, there are lots of influencers out there. Anyone can access them. It's not hard to get to someone that you think is right for the brand, but knowing will they work for your brand is a different story. And so, these are two beauty influencers that have very similar channel sizes, rates. They're both great content creators. And so historically, how would you as a brand or someone on the practitioner side make a choice? You can look at engagement rate, but sometimes it's, hey, have I worked with her before? Is she easy to work with? But I think those are bad reasons to make choices on who when you have a selection of great options in front of you. If you can look one level deeper and look at things like click-through rate, conversion rate, you can really start to optimize your programs and have the investment that you have in influencer marketing pay out even more than it is today. And so this is why, we talk about right person, right platform, right time. Possibly a little bit biased. I'll leave that out there. But I do think that YouTube is sometimes overlooked as a channel when working with influencers, or sometimes not even included. I have seen more reports than I'd want where YouTube isn't even an option in the survey that's put out to consumers or brands or when asking questions about social media preferences. It's sometimes put in a different bucket, search, SEO. I think that's a mistake. And so I encourage you guys all to think about YouTube. Some of the reasons why people don't use YouTube when thinking about influencer is it's more expensive, it's harder, it's more complicated. The industry just isn't there yet. There are brands that have heavy emphasis on YouTube as well, and so that's not necessarily a blanket statement. But why YouTube and why is video important? More than half of moms look for information about a product on YouTube before making a purchase. I want to say it's now, not just moms, around 56% of people want to watch a video before making a purchase online. So think about that. If you're a brand and consumers want to consume information about your product and video, how do you make it easier for them? How do you show up when they're doing that research and control the conversation a little bit? And then how do you think about bringing that content to them wherever they are in the consumer journey? Consumers are willing to spend more after watching video. And again, that's not necessarily a YouTube comment. And so if you think about activating on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, is video part of your content mix? Are you working with influencers that take great photos only, or are you working with a mix of influencers that can accomplish both? YouTube content stays relevant for longer. This is where I think that SEO comes into play. And you can think about the longevity of the content. Working with influencers in any format is time consuming, it's resource intensive. And in some of the channels, the content's old the minute that it goes live, unless you're putting paid support behind it. That's not the case on YouTube. That content can stick around and have value for as long as that topic is relevant and that product is for sale. We've done some programs around smart home products, and videos from 3 or 4 years ago are still consistently getting views and sending traffic into the retail channel, and people are buying as a result of it. And so there is that evergreen nature and the long tail value that is unlocked with YouTube as a channel. And what we're seeing is that YouTube drives considerably more traffic than Instagram in-feed posts. And so, yes, stories have a better, user experience for swiping up. But if you're thinking in feed, it's harder to get people out of the app and into a shopping mindset. And again, not always the case, but if it is, and if you are looking to do something to move people down funnel, YouTube does organically drive significantly more traffic than Instagram in feed posts. And the last, and I think most important, is they're rich media assets in a time where video production is hard to do. And some organizations are trying to encourage brands to find alternatives to spinning up production shoots, given the pandemic and the complexities with shooting and putting production shoots together. Influencers are great solutions for that. They make amazing content. Some of them have cinematography skills that are matched with, the television industry. And so understanding that, and if you work and partner with those type of content creators, you're getting these rich media assets that can start to fill lots of content gaps. We've seen customers use our content in OLVs, in TV ads. Boosting the content on social platforms is pretty commonplace, but additionally, putting that content within the retail channels. And retailers themselves are asking you guys on the brand side for more video content. They have content standards, and influencers are a great, cost-effective, high-impact solution to that. And so, we've got this philosophy, 1 + 1 = 3, where if you look at your overall marketing needs and you think about influencer as a centerpiece to that, where can they add value and how can you engage with them initially to solve for that? So you're not going back to them after the fact and saying, oh, by the way, what do you think about us using it in an ad? Or, hey, can I put this on my product page? 9 times out of 10, if you do that, they're going to be asking you to re-engage with them. And what does that mean? It means you spending more money. It means them maybe redoing work that they could have done better, smarter the first time. And so there's lots that can be done on YouTube, and there's lots that can be done with video to really enhance the future work that you do with influencer. In a month or so, we're going to be putting out our first research report on some of the metrics around YouTube and different verticals and different tiers of influencers. And so some of the stats in the bottom right are a quick tease to that, but excited to come back to the Brand Innovators community in a few weeks to share more specifics on these performance metrics and the benchmarks that we're starting to see occur within the YouTube channel. And so, okay, so what does all of this mean? How do I approach operationally, structurally, setting myself up for success here? It's about unlocking, omni-channel storytelling and thinking about influencer as much more than just hiring someone to post a piece of content on social. And there's this sense of roles and responsibility that I think sometimes is challenging and different within every organization. And everyone should have a seat at the table is what I firmly believe in. There's communications and planning that is typically led by the brand, the communications team, either internally or externally at a PR firm. I think what is sometimes assumed is that influencer strategy should also sit within that group. It can, but including and inviting partners and vendors that are expert in influencer and do influencer 100% of their day, every single day, is critical. Strategy and plans can be made, and if you think about allocation of funds across platforms or understanding what the KPIs are, they will fundamentally change the mix of what platforms and what influencers. And so I encourage you guys to enlist your partners into that conversation a little bit earlier when thinking about the actual influencer marketing strategy. They then will, yes, be your partner in identifying, negotiating, managing the work. But they have lots of insights and years of experience in social and, in our case, the intersection of social and commerce that can contribute to better upfront planning and aligning on, how do you ladder what influencer is doing up to bigger picture brand goals that you may have that sometimes aren't shared. Then the next part of it is content development. Understanding all the places where this content can add value and live is a way for you to unlock more value and make your investment work harder for you. So thinking about the potential use cases up front actually informs the creative brief that's given to the influencer, the manner in which we ask them to deliver the content back to us, who within the organization might need to look at it or approve it so it can get used for more commercial purposes. And it does actually impact the economics with the influencer as well. And so it's a conversation to be had before, not after the content's created. I think sometimes the thought is, well, let's see what comes in and then we'll figure out what we like and what we do. That's not necessarily a problem. It just might make it harder for you to do what you want as quickly as you want. And that's where asset optimization comes in. If we, gen.video, we think about social commerce and we think about all the digital touch points that influencer content can live. And so optimizing keywords and descriptions, thinking about what product SKUs or ASINs are featured in the video or that lifestyle image, where can that content go after the influencer posts it? Your media, your organic social channels, and your e-commerce pages. And again, there's a bit of work that goes into making sure you're working with influencers that are okay with that, getting the assets and being able to optimize them for each of those platforms and each of those channels. And a lot of that is easy to do if you can get the right stakeholders within your organization involved and embracing the potential that influencers have. And so measurement, going back to what is the key challenge? It's defining and understanding measurement. And so there are tools and there are technologies to help with that. You can very easily start to look at the traffic that your influencers are driving. And again, your influencer programs might not be optimized to drive traffic. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be tracking it and looking at it. And so every influencer post should have a link and an ability to to make it shoppable, whether that's an organic influencer post, paid media amplification of that influencer content that you're doing, or your own organic content. And so we've built some technology to enable that and make any digital piece of content shoppable, and shoppable at the retailer that the consumer themselves wants to shop at. This is incredibly important as you think about trying to refine and optimize your media investments and getting a sense of who your audience is and where they're most receptive, both to receive that message, the influencer post organically, but then where do they want to shop? Are they a Walmart customer? Are they loyal to Target? By giving the consumer choice, you're able to build out audience profiles and will allow you to do more from a paid remarketing investment standpoint later. And so you're thinking about influencer collecting data after they're being exposed to your message, and then using that information to optimize other things that you may be doing, either deciding which piece of content's converting better and should you put media behind, or just saying, okay, I've now created this audience segment that is a target customer, and how do I remarket to them or market to them something new, specifically knowing that they're someone who has self-identified as preferring to shop at that retailer. And so why stop there? Performance analytics are are available. And it's not meant to answer the ROI question. It's not meant to say, hey, did I sell, tens of thousands of dollars of toothpaste on Walmart? It is really meant to help bring insights and learnings that allow you to make smarter decisions when you're planning. If you think about influencer, it's not a one and done. It is a commitment and investment that your company is making. And at different points throughout the year, you are looking to tap into influencers to reinforce or introduce messaging about your product or brand. And so this information can help you decide who to work with, maybe make different investments from a channel perspective, and really refine the work that you're doing. And there is access to sales data. You just have to be comfortable looking at it for what it is, which is insights and purchase intent. It's not the ROI answer that everyone's looking for. It can be indicative of what might be happening, but it's not the sum of all the parts, right? I go back to what I was saying about my personal use on Instagram. I'm not going to stop everything I'm doing when I see, a shirt that I like, but I might go buy it later. Influencers should still get credit for that, but you might not get attribution specifically for that because I did it later. And so this is directional information, and product sales data and conversion data can really refine how you approach influencer. And just, I think sometimes when we talk about the analytics that we have in our platform, and you think about the traffic that goes into the retail channel and the sales, sometimes it's like, yeah, well, if I'm a $5 product, like, that's not for me, that's not going to work. Again, it's for insights. It's not to prove to your leadership team that you sold a bunch of stuff. But I want to talk through these two in a little bit of detail because I think they're really important to understand. So this is to the left side of the screen. It's a consumer electronic client we worked with last holiday. This is a program that was across multiple channels. And what you're seeing is the initial spike in December when the organic content went live. But there's this continued traffic and sales occurring for this product because people, yes, it's driven by COVID, and the second wave is people shopping at home when they were trying to get their workstation set up, and then you see another surge more recently when people were getting their kids ready for back to school. But it speaks to the ability for the data that can be collected. And also, I think there's a little nod to YouTube here in terms of that evergreen nature of that channel. And if you create content that's a little bit more brand centric than influencer, day in the life, that content can constantly get served up by YouTube, drive traffic down funnel, and get people to buy. On the right-hand side, this is a CPG beauty brand in a more recent activation, but again, a product that's probably less than $10, and still we're seeing very clear correlation between when organic posts driving traffic into the channels and sales occurring, and then continued sales at a much lesser degree, but related to the amount of consumption occurring on the social channels of that influencer content. And so it can work in many verticals. It can work for DTC customers as well. And so again, it's having the courage of your conviction to start to want to look at these metrics and understand what they're intended to open up for you, and not to be scared by the absolute dollar numbers that you're seeing. You were investing in influencer before this data was available because you saw that it was impacting your business. There were correlations elsewhere. That's still the case. And again, when I think about purchase intent insights, the information around what people are buying are sometimes just interesting and fascinating. A CE client of ours would always get a kick out of if someone bought socks after looking at their video. Again, has nothing to do with their business, but a lot of times what you're seeing is product correlations, and there are some interesting things that could influence the editorial ask, or maybe help you think about, well, hey, am I really reaching the right audience if they watch and they engage with my content to benchmarks or standards on the social platforms, but then these people were not even buying in my category? That's the type of information and insights that can be unlocked by better measurement and tracking. And, so I spent a lot of time talking about the analytics. And so I wanted to just put this quote out here because I think this answers the, well, why? A couple of years ago, Mark Pritchard, demanded for the industry to create, a new media supply chain, right? A better ecosystem that was focused on quality, transparency, and control, so that brands knew what was happening with the millions of dollars they were investing in advertising. Nielsen exists to provide that level of, transparency and leveling of the playing field. And the future of influencer marketing is going to require that same level of rigor and discipline and standardization, so that brands can feel confident that they're making the right choices on the partners to work with, the influencers that they're working with, and the amount of money that they're investing in this. And so if you think about how much of the funding that you're doing for influencer is being pulled from other parts of your marketing budget, we want to make sure that there's measurements and measurement standards that give you the confidence in making those decisions, and then being able to monitor and track the impacting results and the optimization and improvement over time. And so, and what does this end up meaning? It can help you brief influencers better. So this is a fine piece of content that had really good performance organically, but there are a few things that we're missing. The brand logo is not visible. She's not in the bathroom, and that's typically where you wash your face and put your makeup on. And there isn't like a really clear central focus point. These are some of the things that you probably, if you are in the advertising industry, might have heard talked about when you're evaluating the persuasiveness or the potential impact of your TV commercials. The same can be applied to influencer, like how is this content inspiring shopping, and how are you making sure that you're briefing influencers and holding them to standards so that they're putting out content that should work and should resonate. And then when you have that content, it opens up the ability to help with your e-commerce business. This is one of the things that I think is really where the future of influencer is heading. There's lots of softwares or technologies that help you guys bring social content through hashtags into the retail channel. Well, what about you creating your own and making it so that you can bring it and put it in other places? And so you can see Walmart is a good example of a brand that has really started to reimagine the digital shelf. And it looks more like an Instagram post than it does a retail page. And that's because that's the type of content, that lifestyle content, that customers are wanting. And the great news is it's having the impact that you guys need. There are two ways to improve your e-commerce business: drive more traffic and lift your conversion rate. Influencers do both. They can drive qualified traffic, and when you put their content on your product pages, people are more likely to buy, they're willing to spend more, and we are seeing across the board with our customers increases in conversion rate of 20% or more in some cases, simply by optimizing and placing that lifestyle product image and product video specifically within your retail experience. And so, if you are an e-commerce person on your brand team, and you're like, oh geez, I've got so many holes to fill from a content standpoint, don't have big budgets, influencers can be partnered with without them even posting to their social channels. So again, if you change your perspective on how valuable partnering with influencers can be for your business, there's lots of opportunity. And why should you believe anything I'm saying? One, I've been in the industry for over a decade, and Gen.video is a trusted Amazon partner. We buy media for our clients on their platform. We're an approved creative services vendor. We've been part of their beta programs for live streaming, and we're one of their influencer agencies of record. And so we're able to see things from sort of both sides of the coin, from the brand side, what's happening, and then also sometimes get a behind the curtain look at the results on a retailer themselves. And so, if your organization is still very siloed and your comms team and your brand team sits over here and your e-commerce team is on a different floor, I guess that doesn't matter now when everyone's working from home. Maybe you're not thinking about how do you guys collaborate and work together. But when you do, and this is a really crazy looking slide, so apologies, there's a ton of opportunity to unlock. And so what this is it's looking at traffic from influencer, timing of when the influencers posted organically, conversion rate data, and product page traffic data from the retailers. And so if you layer your commerce data, your social data, and your influencer data on top of each other, you can really start to correlate and see the impact that influencers having. And again, it's not exact. It's not actuals, there isn't that clear, line from beginning to end, but you are starting to see really tight correlations. And we're hearing time and time again from our clients anecdotes like, hey, yeah, that influencer posted and, we saw a bump in sales immediately after. We shouldn't bank on that being the like 100% answer, but it should give you your courage of your conviction to sort of like lean in and dig in a little bit more to the data and start to understand how they're reinforcing each other and how better collaboration within your organization can lead to increased results. And what does that all mean? Think about closed loop marketing. There's credible influencers, there's your brand storytelling, and then there's making sure that influencer content is available beyond just their audience, but for all of your existing and potential customers, and thinking about how to introduce influencer into that full consumer journey. And so, talk for a while, happy to answer some questions in a moment, but, if there's 5 takeaways that you get from what I just shared with you, I think it boils down to these 5 things. Planning across the customer journey. Again, influencers can play a pivotal role in supporting your brand, especially if you're working under more constrained budgets. So don't just think of them as a broadcast. Think about them as content partner, and think about all of the other places where you can have impact from partnering with them. The second is build outcome-based strategies. When I talk about performance analytics and collecting that data, it's not about telling a sales ROI story. It's about understanding the audience of the influencer, the purchase intent that's happening afterwards, and taking that information back and using it to build better plans and to optimize the work that you're doing. If you partner with 20 Instagram influencers for a product launch in March and you want to have some seasonal messaging during a buying period, don't just find 15 new people. Don't just assume that all 15 of them are good. See who's working harder for your brand. And it can even help you think about like, hey, should I have a different relationship with this person? He or she is consistently working hard for my brand. Maybe I should put them off to the side and think about things like ambassador programs. And so it's building outcome-based strategies, and it's using that performance analytics as a mechanism to do so. Work with experienced partners. Everyone wants to do influencer. It's fun, it's exciting. Everyone isn't expert at it. So make sure you find partners that are experienced in your vertical, are expert at what they do, and it is what they do all day, every day. I think it's super important, especially, as we look to get more out of what we're doing. Integrate video into the mix. My company's called gen.video. I came from a cable background, very much believe in the power of video story and the demand that consumers are having for video in all aspects of their life. So give them what they want and talk to them in the way that they want to be engaged with by your brand. And I think video is undoubtedly necessary at this point, regardless of where and what platform you're activating on. And then last, think about the e-commerce gaps. I think there's really low-hanging fruit for anyone that's currently investing in influencers to think about, can you repurpose that content? Can you, the next time you're asking for that content, do so with influencers with another potential use case in mind afterwards? And that's one way for you to extract more value from the engagement that you have and see more evergreen, all year long impact for your brand. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the presentation and see if there's some questions. All right, let's see. There we go. All right. So first question, how do you approach emerging media channels and how do they factor into your overall strategy? You know, I don't think that's a one size fits all answer. Just this morning was meeting with my account team and we were talking about a client who was looking to reintroduce some of their brands. And so, you know, despite the fact that we love video and think YouTube's a great platform, we don't include YouTube in every single strategy that we put together for brands. And so I think there's a time and a place for emerging brands and emerging platforms, and it should always start with test and learns. And so I would never say to a brand, let's just double down here without any proof that it's going to work. And so we definitely take a test and learn approach to new channels like TikTok. I'd say there's some of our clients that are really doubling down there and it's working nicely for them, but it was after we did something smaller. And so I encourage all brands to explore new platforms, both by just doing your research, having conversations internally, and if you think there's something there and your audience is there, that's an important one. If your audience is there, test it out and then get some insights, get some learnings, and then, you know, reapply or expand out from there. Okay. What innovation and technologies are you utilizing to execute your strategies? Has that changed since the pandemic began? So in terms of innovations, you know, I guess I'll answer this from the platform perspective. And if you think about the first question that was asked, every single time a new platform or a new post format on a platform pops up, there's new technology that needs to get built in order to make sure that we can collect the data, bring back that data to brands. And so the innovation is typically around how do we make sure that we're not missing out on a big part of the overall social media landscape first. And then same thing with the retailers, right? Like retailers are doing more and more, making it easier for brands to get access to data sometimes is a little slow of a process, but thinking about that and making sure that we're constantly solving brand problems and building solutions that solve the next problem and the next problem. Okay, so I think we're at time for the next session. And so